he has to realize God is the source of his bounty. And so we find in Deuteronomy 26, 3 and 4, God says, okay, here's what you do. I want you to go to the priest that'll be in those days. And here's what I want you to say to him. I profess this day unto the Lord thy God that I am come into the country. If you remember, they said, God, you brought us out to kill us. That's what they thought. They thought God was a horrible God. They only brought him out to kill him. And he wasn't going to give them the promised land. So now they have to confess that, yes, he brought them into the land. Okay, and then it says, which the Lord swore to our fathers to give us, and the priest is to take the basket out of your hand and set it down before the altar of the Lord your God. In other words, the farmer who works the promised land has to testify that God's promises are true. Now, what they would do, they would go by foot with the baskets full of the 7 types of fruit. There were 7 species that they would be required to bring. And the whole community would have a bull going in front of them. And its horns were covered in gold. And it had an olive wreath around its neck. And then when they got there, the bull would be offered up as a peace offering. And then when they came to Jerusalem, everyone would come out of Jerusalem to greet them as they're coming in with all their baskets of fruit, with shouts of joy and playing of flutes. And they would all be bringing their offerings into the temple. And so we see in Deuteronomy 26:10, it goes on to say, and now, behold, I have brought the first fruits of the land. Okay, and what is the Hebrew word for first fruits? Reshit. Okay, like the R-A-S-H-I-T. Reshit. That is the word in this verse for first fruits. Now, what Reshit means, it means the first in place. Like you're in a race. I got first place. You'd be the Reshit. Or maybe the first in time. Or maybe the first in rank, or first in order, all right? It means the beginning. The beginning is the first. Well, guess what? What is the first word of the Bible? It is Bereshit. It just has the letter bait in front, which means in. So this one word means in the first place, in the very beginning. But do you know what's crazy about this word as well? You separate it like that, it's the same word, but a sheet is the word cornerstone or foundation, and the word bar is son, as in bar mitzvah. In the beginning, we see the son was laid as the cornerstone of the foundation of all of history. This is just part, but wait, there's more. Messiah, it's the first fruit of the earth, had to be offered to the Lord. Well, guess what? Messiah was in the earth, died, and rose again, and became the first fruits when he went back to heaven and offered himself to the Father as the first fruits on the Feast of First Fruits. He was the first fruit of the resurrection. Amazing. This is why in John, the Gospel of John 12:24, Yeshua said, verily, verily, I say to you, except a grain of wheat fall in the ground and die, it abides alone. But if it dies, it brings forth what? Much fruit. Guess what? You take that same word, bar, not only means son, as in Daniel 3:25, it also means grain in Genesis 41:49 when they gathered grain in Joseph's time during the 7 years of plenty. And remember, so bar is grain. Well, remember he said, unless a grain of wheat fall on the ground and die? He is also the grain of the first fruits offering. As a matter of fact, as I said, Reshit in Leviticus 23:10 means first fruits. And in 1 Corinthians 15:20, it talks about we are the first fruits. Look at 1 Corinthians 15:20 on your notes. But now is Christ risen from the dead. He's become the first fruits of those who slept. And so he rose from the dead. But guess what? That guarantees we will too. And all of your loved ones that know the Messiah. He is the first fruits, and the first fruit is good. Everything else is good. Okay, now, on the Feast of First Fruits, the Levites would be singing Psalms 30 specifically. On the Feast of First Fruits, well, guess what? It just so happens Psalms 30 speaks of the death and resurrection of the Messiah, who is symbolized by the first fruits. Look at Psalm 30, verse 1. I extol you, O Lord, for you have lifted me up, and you've not made my foes to rejoice over me. Verse 3, O Lord, you brought up my soul from the grave. You kept me alive that I should not go down to the pit. Wow! This is what they're singing when Messiah rose from the dead. This is what they were singing. So what happens when they came with their first fruits to the Temple Mount, they would have these baskets of first fruits, and they would lift up the basket, and they'd carry it on their shoulder when they entered into the court where they did the sacrifices. So then the priests would lay their hands under each basket, and together they would wave the basket in all four directions, kind of like the lulav, okay, on tabernacles, showing God that they're giving him thanks that it all belongs to God. Then the baskets were placed by the altar, and then when they placed the basket by the altar, they had to read this very text that we're about to read in Deuteronomy 26, 8 through 11. They have to say, the Lord brought us out of Egypt with a mighty hand, with an outstretched arm, with great terribleness, with signs and wonders. And he brought us to this place and has given us the land, even a land that flows with milk and honey. And now behold, I brought the first fruits of the land, which you, O Lord, have given me.